A new program comes to TBS Radio at 5:30 p.m. every Sunday from the 2nd of June. Labby Tale, Habits That Count, is hosted by Dr. Martha Marcella Joseph. Dr. Martha J., educator, instructor, literacy specialist, coach, storyteller, and author. Dr. Martha J. will explore the use of principles of habit to positively impact success in our lives and our community. The 30-minute program will be aired both on radio and social media. Labby Tale, Habits That Count, will also explore habits we can utilize to remedy or change our circumstances. The habit loop will be at the center of every discussion. Join TBS Radio from Sunday, June 2nd for Labby Tale, Habits That Count, 5:30 p.m. on radio, Facebook, and YouTube. Labby Tale, Habits That Count.
Let me say good afternoon to Dr. Martha Joseph, the first program on Labby Tale. I'm going to go right over to you. How was your Sunday? Blessed. Huh?
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Labby Tale, Habits That Count, a place where we examine issues or concerns and identify practices or habits that we can implement to remedy them or to achieve some level of success in our lives. I am your host, Martha Marcella Joseph, or Dr. Martha J. Labby Tale is brought to you live on DBS Radio locally in the Caribbean, of course, streaming live. It's on Facebook Live, YouTube, and our sponsors for this month are Hilltop Renovations and Leonard Taxi Services in St. Thomas, Rainbow Construction in Dominica, and of course, Budding Writers Academy. Whether you're listening locally or in the diaspora, thank you for your listen, and you're welcome. So for those of you who've been asking why Labby Tale and what is Labby Tale, I am passionate about habits. Growing up with my grandmother, she always spoke about habits and said habits are easy to grow and hard to break. And I didn't really pay attention to all of that. But then I realized that when I wrote books, I wrote on habits. When I developed stuff for education, I wrote on habits. And so I decided to call my program Labby Tale. And I know for those of you who are really enthused about language, you're going to say l'habitude is the French for l'habitude, for habits, or l'habitude is the Creole for habits, and you're right. But I'm from Dalis, by the way. And in Dalis, we say Labby Tale. So growing up, it's always been Timon uni move Labby Tale. And so because of that, in honor of my community and in honor of my grandmother, of course, who always spoke about habits, that's why I decided to call it Labby Tale instead of Labby Tale. So no offense. So weekly, we'll be here every Sunday from 5:30 to 6. And for those of you who are listening this time, thank you so much for your listen. You are here with me for the first time, and I appreciate you. So first Sunday, we will speak about inspiration. The next one, we'll do education. The next one, we'll do something that's happening internationally. And then we will do something cultural. So this Sunday, we will be beginning with perseverance. So what is perseverance? To persevere is to persist. And for those of you who like the dictionary like I do, perseverance says it is a course of action where you persist regardless or despite of obstacles. And so you might say to me, what do you know about perseverance? Well, this is usually this time of year is a time when we have millions of graduation. I heard the news this week where we said that there were millions of students graduating. So whether they're graduating from middle school or elementary school or high school, college, we like to take, for example, college and high school, we take more seriously. But even the preschool parents those days, they say my child is graduating. I'm not sure what that means. But anyway, this is the time of year when we have more students graduate. And for one of the schools that I taught at, there was a roll call day. And roll call day, students had to stand in line, biting their nails, waiting to hear their names. And some of them never heard their name called. And that is a time when students feel very discouraged. So they didn't get your name called. That means you didn't graduate, right? Last week I listened to Laku with Cecil Joseph, and his guest was Mr. Beaupierre, and he said he was so active at school, but then he said, I didn't graduate. And so I want you to know that you are going to experience things, but these are the things that would cause you to persevere. So number one thing that might cause you to persevere is falling short. So if you are in a high school or college and you fell short probably by 1 point, or maybe one course you didn't pass, and you find the news that you're not graduating, and the first thing you want to do is feel hopeless. You usually feel discouraged. You tend to feel like you're inadequate. It's like, oh my God, people are going to think that I'm dunce because I didn't make it. But I want to say to you tonight that that's an ingredient for persevering. You probably an adult and you got the pink slip. Somebody said to you, your services are no longer needed. Or they might say to you, your vision no longer aligns with the vision of our company, and therefore we'll have to let you go. Or they might say, well, we've given you 6 months to pull your socks up and you haven't, so therefore we're going to send you out. And so these are times when you find yourself being almost getting to the point of depression. But I want to say to you tonight that this is not the time to lose hope, because this is an ingredient for perseverance. Another ingredient for perseverance is being overlooked. Some of you, you've probably been in the job for, say, 10 years, 5 years, and then time came for a promotion, and guess what? They gave it to somebody else. Probably the person that you have been training. And that person got the job and not you. So right away, you start feeling betrayed. You start feeling slighted. You start feeling rejected. You start feeling all of those feelings start encompassing you. And then you feel like it's time to go into, that place of, you start using your mouth on people and saying all sorts of things. But let me say to you, being overlooked, that's part of the game. It's not the time to give up, because perseverance, that's an ingredient for perseverance. You might have taken a test for something, maybe to enter a program like the military or maybe the fire service, something, and you didn't pass. Same thing. Do not be discouraged. Guess what? What about the goalpost being moved? Anybody knows the story of Jacob in the Bible? His father-in-law said to him, okay, if you work for 7 years, I'll give you one girl, the girl that you love. And then when the 7 years came, he said to him, sorry, you have to take that other girl. You have to work an additional 7 years. Some of us in real life, we have encountered those things where the goalpost has been moved. So you were told to do one thing. When you get to do that point, then we will give you X. And then guess what? You work hard, you do everything they asked you to do to the T. And guess what? When you came for results, they said to you, sorry, but you're going to have to try again. Or while you were getting prepared, the requirements changed. And so you will have to, take another year or two before you can actually get that position. Guess what? What you start doing, you start feeling angry, you start feeling bitter. And sometimes what you do, you go to work and you try to motivate the people. You want to use your mouth on them. You want to say all sorts of bad things about the person who prevented you from getting that position. But guess what? Didn't you know that that was actually an opportunity for you to persevere? You might say to me, hey, you haven't experienced those things. That's why you feel so comfortable talking about it. Hold up. Not so fast. There's another another area that might cause you to persevere. For example, sometimes we lose focus. You probably left school, and instead of getting a job, you find yourself getting maybe an early pregnancy that you didn't anticipate, or you might have gotten incarcerated. You lost focus. And so because you lost focus, you missed the mark and you find yourself getting discouraged, you feel worthless, you feel like you're not worthy, and you almost want to give up because you've experienced those things. You feel like, oh, it doesn't make any sense anymore. And there's one more category of people I want to address. I want to call you up. Those of you who feel stuck, it might be in a job that you just don't like. I just can't stand my job anymore. I want to move so badly and I don't know what to do. It might be in your weight loss process. You want to lose some weight and then you're like, oh my God, I just don't know what to do anymore. It might be in a relationship. It might be something that you just feel so stuck that you just don't know what to do. And so today I want to say to you that all of those categories I've mentioned are all categories for perseverance. Guess what? I'm going to tell you my story. And by the way, for those of you who are listening, the last 10 minutes, we will open the lines so that you can share, you can call, you can ask questions, you can share your experience if you want to, you can leave a word of encouragement or any of those things. But I want you to say thank you for your listen. And for those of you who just tuned in, you are listening to Labby Till. It's 30 minutes with you, and I want to make sure that I give you the best that I can. So what I want to share with you today is that every experience that I shared a while ago, I experienced all of them. I want you to know that I'm not asking you to do something that I haven't experienced. So I fell short. After I graduated from high school, Dominica Grammar School in 1985, that's a long time ago, I graduated, yeah, but when I got my results, I didn't even understand what they meant because that was the first year we had the CXC exams. All students did CXC. And so I didn't really understand what they meant anyway. So I had gotten 4 general 2s and 3 basic 3s. And I thought that was, okay, fine. So I always wanted to be a nurse. So I applied to be a nurse. And I got a rejection letter, of course. So I'm like, okay, I don't know what that means either. So guess what? I walked up to Santa Roma. There were no buses going up there then. I walked up, went to speak to the dean or the director, however we call her. And I wanted to see her personally, not her secretary. That's how brazen I was. And she said to me, she explained, she said, you did not do biology in school. We require biology in order to be part of this program. She also said, and besides, you did integrated science and you scored a 3. We can't even consider that. So only way you can go back and see if you can pass biology and then you can come back. I walked down Constitution Hill and I decided, okay, then I'll try teaching. So I applied to teach. And of course, I got another rejection letter. And same thing, I didn't want to take no for an answer. So I went to the ministry and I asked to speak to the lady in charge at the time. And not her secretary, I wanted to see her. Invited me in, tall, dark lady, pleasant. And then she explained to me, she said, ma'am, you have 4 general 2s. That means this is half a subject each. You have 2 subjects and you need 4 to get a work with the government agency. So go ahead and see if you can pass the subjects and then come back. Of course, I was dejected. All of the things you felt when you fell short. I was dejected. I felt inadequate. I felt insufficient. I felt like I had failed. I felt like my parents had wasted their money. I felt all of those things. But guess what? I found a job that I was qualified for. And at that time, it was to work at the taxi service. It was to work in a store to sell rubber shoes. I did that with diligence. And while I did it, I worked on qualification. I went ahead, I got all my subjects I needed, and then I started looking for government jobs. Guess what? I got a job with the youth department. I worked several jobs. But then when I worked with the youth division, you're talking about loose focus. Here it was again. I found myself with an early pregnancy. What do? Stop? No. Take care of that child, but also continue to get qualified. I continued to get qualified, and guess what? There was that feeling of satisfaction. So the feeling of down and inadequacy I felt before, once I qualified and I persevered along the way, I was able to change those feelings over to that feeling of satisfaction. Guess what? You're talking about moving the goalpost. I moved from the United States Virgin Islands to the mainland, and I was told if you pass a particular test, you will get a particular job. I went ahead, I passed the test, 3 hours long test. And guess what? When I applied for the position, I was told, oh, you were supposed to work 3 years in our system in addition to passing that test. They didn't tell that to me before. So that was moving the goalpost for me. You talk about being overlooked. I have applied for positions where I was more qualified than the people who got the position. The excuses they gave me for not getting it didn't make any sense. But guess what? I was overlooked. What did I do? You think I decided to get bitter and start giving the people mauvais langue? No. I went to work, I showed up on time, and I decided I was going to re-qualify, I was going to overqualify, and I was going to apply for something else. Folks, we talk about the words of our mouth. We come from a Christian society, and we talk about let the words of our mouth and the meditation of our hearts be acceptable. But guess what? We walk into people's jobs and we walk bitter because they didn't give, we were overlooked. You can't do that. One of my favorite authors, Lynn Grabhorn, she says, her book is entitled, Excuse Me, Your Life is Waiting. She says, we attract what we speak or what we feel. So if you're walking into these people's job and you're motivating them, or motivate is a patois word for those of you who are listening and do not understand Creole, but you're saying all those bad things on them, wishing them bad things. You walk into work and your face is just, mad. What are you attracting? You're only going to attract the same thing that you're sending forth. So guys, if you're in that position that you don't like, that you were overlooked, do not go to work bitter. Go to work and give your 110% because you have a plan. Your plan is to qualify, re-qualify, and then leave them waiting right there. But don't go bitter because you're not going to be attracting the things you need to attract. Remember, habit. We like to talk about breaking habits, but habits, sorry to tell you that we can't break them. We can replace them. Erasmus, who happens to be an old theologian, he says, just as nail drives out nail, habit overcomes habit. So instead of walking into the job bitter, try going in pleasant. And then you will say, well, how can I go pleasant when I was overlooked? Well, guess what? You are attracting what you portray. For example, if you walk into the supermarket tomorrow and your face is waxed, like really waxed, like serious, you think anybody's going to smile back at you? No, that's what you are portraying. So what I want to encourage you to do is to smile. Try it next week or this week. Just smile and you will see. When you walk into the supermarket, just break into smile and see what happens. People are going to be smiling back at you. That's what you're attracting. When you tell somebody, God bless you, guess what? 9 out of 10 times, they're going to tell you, same to you. When you tell somebody, thank you, or you tell somebody something pleasant, 9 out of 10 times, you're going to get the same response. So remember, when you find yourself in a position, whether you lost your job or you were overlooked, first thing you want to do, the first habit or the first practice is to take stock, acknowledge where you are, okay? Think of it, and that's always going to be the trigger. I didn't graduate because you saw something and it triggers the thought. So you have a thought, an emotion, or an action that you're going to have to replace. You're going to identify the feelings that accompany that space. So every time you think of that job that you didn't get, what are those feelings? And then you're going to think of what are my alternatives. So instead of sitting there and whining, well, what am I going to do? I had to make a few calls to find out what am I going to do to requalify. The next thing you're going to do is work up that plan. If you're going to qualify, overqualify, develop a skill, something you're going to do to make sure that happens. Then you're going to work on that plan. And I always say to people, get an accountability partner. Because if you do not get somebody who's going to be checking on you, oh, what about that course you said you were going to take? Check on that. And then the next thing I want you to do is evaluate it. Next time we'll talk a little more about the habit loop, and we will understand more what we mean when we say that habits cannot be broken. Instead, they can be replaced. At this time, I'm going to take a pause and see if we have anybody who wants to call. If you would like to call, because we have just about 7 minutes left of show time, the number to call if you're calling locally is 448-3284, or you can call 1-800-327, or if you want to call internationally, it's 305-4329-744. Again, 305-4329-744.
A new program comes to DBS Radio at 5:30 p.m. every Sunday from the 2nd of June. Labby Tale, Habits That Count, is hosted by Dr. Martha Marcella Joseph. Dr. Martha J., educator, instructor, literacy specialist, coach, storyteller, and author. Dr. Martha J. will explore the use of principles of habit to positively impact success in our lives and our community. The 30-minute program will be aired both on radio and social media. Labby Tale, Habits That Count, will also explore habits we can utilize to remedy or change our circumstances. The habit loop will be at the center of every discussion. Join DBS Radio from Sunday, June 2nd for Labby Tale, Habits That Count, 5:30 p.m. on radio, Facebook, and YouTube. Labby Tale, Habits That Count.
For your listen, if you're listening, this is Labby Tale, Habits That Count. Those of you who are leaving comments on Facebook, thank you so much for your comments. And if you have any questions, we'll take it. But what I want to say to you is, it is Conrad Hilton who said, successful men and women keep moving. They make mistakes, but they never quit. Successful men and women keep moving. They make mistakes, but they never quit. So I'm going to say to you, think of that new thing that you want. Think of those new feelings. So you had that feeling of hopelessness. You need to replace it with the feeling of hope. But the only way you can do that is to think of something positive that you want to do. So you failed that course. Call. Find out what you can do to make sure that you can pass that course. When I listened to Mr. Beaupierre last week, he is the boss. He didn't pass high school, but he didn't sit. He went and he took his subjects, he passed them, and the brothers kept their promise and gave him his diploma. And he is one of the most successful businessmen. And another thing I want to let you know, I remember him saying that even when he was in business and he was struggling to pay his bills, he had to call his family members to support him. But you didn't know that. That's what perseverance does. When we are persevering, nobody knows what's going on. During COVID, I got so frustrated with my job because I couldn't get to do what I was going to do. Teachers were not here. Everybody was calling in sick, and I was just an overpaid substitute. You know what I did? January of 2021, I went back to school and earned another master's degree. By December of 2021, I graduated. I didn't go around bragging, telling everybody I was in school, but I was doing it in the back. Now, guess what? By 2022, I was able to secure a position in one of the top 10 STEM schools in America because I pushed, I persevered. So I want to tell you, successful men and women, we keep moving. We make mistakes, but we do not quit. So I want to tell all of you, whatever your situation was, whether you were overlooked, whether the goalpost was moved, whether you fell short, whether you've been stuck, don't give up. Don't give up. This is your time to keep persevering. And remember, let the words of your mouth be positive, because you will attract what you speak. So don't go to the people's job saying bad things because they didn't give you the job you wanted. Go do your job. Speak positive. If you don't know what to say, be quiet instead. But anyway, I want to say to you, thank you so much for your listening. We are getting to the end of our time. I want to thank you so much for your listening, your listen. I want to thank those of you who left comments. I want you to remember, and my favorite, my quote that I created for perseverance is the intrinsic desire to press on despite obstacles. In other words, it has to be you who wants it, not your mom, not your papa, not your daddy, not your neighbor, not your spouse. It has to be intrinsic. It has to be something on your inside. You want that thing so bad that you are going to work for it. So my question to you, how bad do you want it?
Okay, Doctor.
How bad do you want it? Thank you again for your listen.
We do have a call online.
Okay, go ahead. Thank you.
Good evening, Dr. Joseph.
Good evening.
I just feel I need to say something before you leave. First time hearing your program, it was short and sweet, encouraging. And I want to thank you for sharing your experiences. And we need more people like you, because sometimes it's just that we need to hear. Thank God you're positive, and I think the message you are leaving for us is always have a positive mind, and we will get there. Have a good evening.
Right.
I can't wait to hear the next program.
Okay, thank you very much for calling in. We appreciate you. Thank you. So as we come to the end, I want to say that you've been listening to Labby Teal, Habits That Count, with your host, Dr. Martha J. Thank you for connecting. I want to say until next time, keep pressing. Show some kindness to someone. And like my late Professor Emmanuel, who introduced me to radio first, he would say, plant a seed, it will grow. Bye-bye.
A new program comes to DBS Radio at 5:30 p.m. every Sunday from the 2nd of June. Labby Tale, Habits That Count, is hosted by Dr. Martha Marcella Joseph. Dr. Martha J., educator, instructor, literacy specialist, coach, storyteller, and author. Dr. Martha J. will explore the use of principles of habit to positively impact success in our lives and our community. The 30-minute program will be aired both on radio and social media. Labby Tale, Habits That Count, will also explore habits we can utilize to remedy or change our circumstances. The habit loop will be at the center of every discussion. Join DBS Radio from Sunday, June 2nd for Labby Tale, Habits That Count, 5:30 p.m. on radio, Facebook, and YouTube. Labby Tale, Habits That Count. A new program comes to DBS Radio at 5:30 p.m. every Sunday from the 2nd of June. Labby Tale, Habits That Count, is hosted by Dr. Martha Marcella Joseph. Dr. Martha J., educator, instructor, literacy specialist, coach, storyteller, and author. Dr. Martha J. will explore the use of principles of habit to positively impact success in our lives and our community. The 30-minute program will be aired both on radio and social media. Labby Tale, Habits That Count, will also explore habits we can utilize to remedy or change our circumstances. The habit loop will be at the center of every discussion. Join DBS Radio from Sunday, June 2nd for Labby Tale, Habits That Count, 5:30 p.m. on radio, Facebook, and YouTube. Labby Tale, Habits That Count.